So that's my son, and that's his bike. He was knocked off his bike on the 11th of March 2020 on the corner of Morayfield Road and Walker's Road, where Bunnings is there. So if anybody saw the accident where the vehicle that was registered to Trevor Lewis, the candidate running for the Moreton Bay elections, driven by a female driver, cut the lane out of the left-hand lane straight into the right-hand lane without looking and knocked him off the motorbike. He swerved to avoid her locking up the back wheel and high-sided him straight over and into the ground, wrecked his helmet, gave him concussion, threw out his neck, and he spent the next 4 weeks out of work and then was forced back to work because he got screwed over by workers' compensation work cover. So he had to go back to work with injuries in continuous, and now he's being jerked around by RACQ insurance on the bike through the other party. The driver told him when they got out of the vehicle that they didn't see him in that lane and they had swerved to avoid something on the road, that there was nothing on the road. But what happened was that he didn't get her details because he was new to having an accident like that, so he was a bit concussed and knocked about. Now there was a paramedic or medical person that was what they stopped from the accident.
When I was at Bunnings, they pulled up in the car park. They had identified themselves as being a paramedic off duty, and they had checked to see if I was alright. But aside from that, after they asked me if I needed anything, you know, at the time I was a bit sore, but I wasn't having too much trouble at that point.
Yeah, so he was concussed and he wasn't really considering his options. He was in shock from the accident and how quickly it had happened and how severe it had been. As you saw, the handlebars have been absolutely massacred in being twisted around the back of the thing there, and we rammed that around to try and get it out of there so he could actually be able to take it home. The damage to the swing arm. So he's gotten a price within this motorcycle of around nearly $6,000 to repair the motorcycle, and just over $2,000 worth of accessories that were destroyed in the accident, including his helmet when he was concussed on the ground, slammed headfirst into the ground. So it's one of those things that morally it is very upsetting that you now have to go through legal courses to be able to get the driver's details to serve a letter of demand onto the parties, even though the car was sign written as being Trevor Lewis's car for the elections, and things have been discussed to try and get the details. So it wrote off all of the stuff on the dash up here, destroyed the GPS and all the rest of the equipment, and they are not interested. Now the driver admitted to Joel that she had not seen him, she'd swerved, she'd left the lane she was in, and they had stopped to you know, because the accident had happened. Interestingly enough, the passenger has now put in a report saying that they were in that lane all that time.
Yeah, you never said a word during.
Yeah, hold on, you can say that, yep.
When I'd come up for sight, they didn't get out of the vehicle, they just stayed in the vehicle, and I was more worried about whether I'd hit them in regards to what had happened. And she said she hadn't seen me, but she had cut me off and then jumped on the brakes in that lane and stopped completely. And I missed him by about a millimetre, like I wasn't far off being in the back seat with him at the time. But now the passenger's story is contradicting what she had told me at the time.
And the passenger at that time, never corrected her story.
No, he didn't say a word. He just kept looking at me.
So that's the problem with RACQ insurance. They say, well, you know, we don't control what people say, and we don't, you know, have to do anything about a report or anything else. Other than that, if they don't want their details released, we don't release their details, even though they caused the accident and they've written off the motorcycle. And now I'm having to supply transport to him to be able to get to work in his injured condition, which means he's actually really shouldn't be working, because there's a whole other host of things within that section of stuff. But when you have nothing to feed your pregnant partner with, who's sick most of the time.
I still had to get my mates to drive me to work for bloody, 2 weeks after, because the doctors were worried about, me being dizzy, because I was dizzy for a couple of weeks afterwards, and had to get transport to work without another vehicle.
So before this, as I said to RACQ, they say they won't be swayed by any other threats or statements, which I've said to them that for the last 15 years, every single vehicle I've ever registered, I've put them on third party. Well, I won't be supporting RACQ with any support or any products purchased ever again in my lifetime, nor will the rest of my family, which is a very large family. But I would also suggest to you guys that you want to consider whether you want to support a company that acts on that manner and then says to you, yeah, but we're not breaking any laws. Well, as I said to the gentleman on the phone, there is certainly a moral conduct that I believe that people and consumers expect, and being screwed over by insurances, whether you can morally say, well, we're not actually breaking any laws, it's not morally correct. We don't care about what the consequence is to the person who suffered the injuries, but this is what we are facing now. So what we're trying to get from people is if anybody was in that area on the 11th of March 2020 at around 2:30 in the afternoon to 2:45 and witnessed my son and the accident, that he was turning right in the right hand lane of the right turn lanes there, and the lady in driving Trevor Lewis's sign written car advertising that he was in the elections was in the left hand lane and then swerved immediately into the right hand lane at the last second. Obviously decided she was going in a different direction at the lights, but the consequence of that was that she cut him off and drove him into the ground. So fortunately he missed their car, but the consequences of her actions were the riding off basically of the bike, because I wouldn't be accepting that bike to be repaired when you see the actual damage to it in the swing arms and in the headstock, and also in the bottom of the shockies here. This thing wobbles all over the road if you try and ride it, so it's actually unroadworthy and it's been taken off the road. But it's pretty small consolation when you have gone without earning money for such a long period of time and suffered the injuries that he suffered, and you don't have any recourse because the insurance isn't breaking any laws. But morally, I wouldn't support RACQ in the future ever again in my lifetime, and I would suggest you probably don't want to be on the receiving end of it at all yourselves. But anyway, that's the story. So if anybody knows of anybody or was in that area, or you're the emergency guy, paramedic person that stopped, or the lady in the car behind Joel when the accident occurred, anybody that witnessed it, if you could please come forward, it would be greatly appreciated, because this is a very costly thing for a young man and his pregnant partner who's sick all the time with the pregnancy. So they are struggling, and couldn't afford to lose the 6 odd weeks worth of wages that plus the medical for treatments and stuff like that. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Please like and subscribe, and to pass it around as much as you can so that people can see it further and further, and hopefully somebody that was in the local area that did witness it will see this being posted and then hopefully respond. Thank you very much. I'm Gary, my son Joel. You can contact us through Facebook and through the YouTube account. Okay, catch you later. Bye-bye. And the phone number is 0449 986 880. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
So on the 11th of March on Morayfield Road, there's 2 right-hand turn lanes. I was
into Walker's Road.
Yeah, into Walker's Road coming off Morayfield
at Bunnings.
Road, at the intersection of Bunnings. I was in the right-hand, so the inner turning lane of the right lanes, to coming up to turn right. I was about halfway along the lane before the lady in the left-hand lane had come across, cut me off. I'd slowed up to avoid her as it was, and then she jumped on the brakes and stopped completely. and I've gone, oh shit, and I've locked up the rear wheel and been high-sided in the ground as a consequence. I've managed to avoid her by bugger all distance. She's then continued up to about 3/4 along the way of the lane, stopped, and this was all on a green light. No one was in front of me prior to her cutting me off.
And nobody was in front of her?
And nobody was in front of her. They had all gone through the lights at the time. So there was
That's how the accident.
That's how the accident happened. There was no point in her stopping halfway along that lane for no reason. Now, she had stated that something had fallen from the vehicle in the left-hand lane, in the left turning lane, the outer turning lane, I mean. There was nothing on the road that I could see. When she'd cut me off, she chucked on her indicator, but she didn't check. She didn't bloody check. And she had just come straight across and then stopped. So it doesn't make any sense as to her story, and then her passenger is lying to not only RACQ but everyone else, stating that they were in my lane before I was in my lane.
Which they didn't raise at the time, did they? Yeah. They didn't raise that at the time when he could have corrected the driver. So this all just came out later on as they fixed up their stories. So it's a very interesting situation why they stopped when they, say they were in the lane and the accident behind them happened, but why did they stop in the middle of the road? Why did any of that happen? So it was a car that was sign written for Trevor Lewis running for Moreton Bay Regional Council elections, and he's refusing to give the details of the driver. So we don't even know if the woman driver is something to do with him or whether they actually even had a licence, because unfortunately Jolie was not skilled enough or knowledgeable enough at an accident like this to have got all those details. So he got the registration of the vehicle, and Trevor Lewis in text to him have said that he's aware of it and that he's placed the claim with the insurance company. So it's between him and the insurance company that's refusing to give the details of the driver at all. And he was asked point blank for those details, and he has just reiterated to contact the insurance company from this point on. So it's a very, very poorly handled situation when a young couple have no access to earning money for the whole time that he was out of work and injured, and still is injured and forced back to work. So it's an appalling situation on RACQ's part to cause this sort of hardship of a young couple, but that's obviously how the company operates, in my opinion. But I won't be supporting them anymore, that's for sure. They're disgraceful. Anyway, we'll catch you on the next one. So anybody that saw the accident, knows of the accident, was in any of the lanes there, witnessed it, please contact us on 0449 986 880. And remember this when you're insuring your car next. Okay, catch you later. Bye-bye. I'm Garry.